Hey, and welcome into the 7 round mock draft series. Today we're going to be doing pick 3, the Detroit Lions. Detroit's in that position to where, depending on how picks 1 and 2 go, is where they're going to be going with 3, but we don't do any trades in this mock draft. If you aren't familiar with the series, I do have a 7 round mock draft that I've completed myself, went through and did every one of the picks, 200 and however many of them, and that's how the draft comes out. So every pick, you're never going to see a player twice. Everyone's going to be original to their team, and it's going to go shake around how a draft is. These are all without trades. Didn't want to put trades in. That would make this thing way too long. But if you are new, please be sure to subscribe. Of course, like the video if you do enjoy. And let's get right into it. As you probably saw in the thumbnail and in the title, Jeff Okudah is going to be the pick for the Lions at pick 3. I think with how the draft is shaping to turn out, with Chase Young and Joe Burrow being the respective 2 and 1 picks, Jeff Okudah is by far, I think, the best fit for these Detroit Lions. They got Desmond Trufant in free agency, which I think was a good signing for them. I think it's going to help the development of Jeff Okudah, but corner is still a very big need for this team. And Jeff Okudah is as close as a can't-miss corner prospect that you can get. There's people saying that he's better than Ramsey coming out. There's people saying that he's a very talented corner up to that echelon, maybe a Lattimore type. And I think that no matter what you're getting out of Okudah, you're gonna get at least a above average starter caliber player. And I personally think he's going to be amazing. Ohio State is basically, in my opinion, a DB university. I know LSU has that title, but he's been a starter for the past 2 years, and he has run away with it. 32 and 34 tackles the past 2 years. He had 3 interceptions this year, but where he really shines is in pass breakups. I mean, he got 9 pass deflections this year, 8 in the year before that, and he's just a guy where teams just do not want to target him. He's kind of like when you think of Stephon Gilmore, he never has stats on his Pro Bowl resume and his All-Pro resume, but you know that Stephon Gilmore is arguably the best corner in the game. My personal opinion, the best corner in the game, and that's just what a Jeff Okudah can bring to you. He's going to scare defenders. He's going to be able to deflect the passes. He's going to be able to stop receivers from catching them, and the best receivers from catching them. We're not talking about small-time receivers. We're talking about he's going to be able to step up with the Julio Joneses of the world, with the DeAndre Hopkins of the world, and he's going to be able to go after them. And I think that that's something you need with him and Trufant on those corners. I think losing Slay looks a little bit better with Jeff Okudah there. Then I go over to pick 35, and I have him selecting edge rusher Yetur Gross-Matos out of Penn State. Now, this team struggled with sacks last year. They paid Trey Flowers a big bag, and just the sack production, I think they were tied for last in the league with sacks. Now, they have Deshaun Hand. They have Trey Flowers. They added some help with Jamie Collins on the outside, but I think getting a guy like Gross-Matos is really going to help you in that sack department. He is a athletic freak, and a lot of people has a first-round grade. I have him slipping out of the first round, and that's why I think as not only a best available type, but just with what the need is, especially needing to get to the quarterback, is the biggest need for the NFL this year. When you have a guy who's had 9 sacks this last season and 8 sacks in his sophomore season at Penn State, that's a guy that you're going to want on your team. Not to mention in his sophomore year, 20 tackles for a loss. And then this last year, his junior year, 14.5 sacks or tackles for a loss as well. The guy is an absolute animal rushing the passer, getting in the backfield, and that's really what you need out of your edge rushers. And I think getting a guy like that, you don't need to move anybody. You don't need to take Trey Flowers out. You don't need to take Deshaun Hand out. I think you can play Danny Shelton, Trey Flowers, Deshaun Hand, Gross-Matos. You can play them all on the line if you want. You can play them all at separate positions. I mean, there's so much versatility you can do, but getting to the quarterback is the biggest need for this NFL. And a guy like Gross-Matos, who I think most people have as a first-round grade, like a late first-rounder, maybe even some people have a mid, getting him at this point is going to be a blessing in disguise for these Lions. Then we go on over to pick 67, and I have them selecting Kyle Duggar, the safety, out of Lenoir-Rhyne University. That's a Division II school. But what Duggar has really done is he's built off of a pretty solid resume at Lenoir-Rhyne. He was kind of a day 3 pick coming into the end of the season. But then when he went to the Senior Bowl, he went to the Combine, he blew scouts away with how athletic he is and how disruptive he is. He missed a couple games due to injury this year. He only played in 7 games. I think he won a Division II award as well in only playing 7 games. When you look at his combine, he ran a 4.49, which is, very quick. He's 0.01 seconds away from Okudah. 42-inch vertical. He added 17 reps on the bench, and 11.17 feet on the broad jump. This guy is an athletic freak. He can get to the ball. He does everything that you need him to do, and I think that that's something that you can get out of a safety who might not have the biggest name. A lot of people might not know him, but you take him under that wing, and I think he's going to be able to fill that Quandre Diggs hole that we've got for the Lions since they shipped him off to Seattle. I mean, he had over 50. He had 76 tackles in 2018, added 31 in the 7 games he played this year. So it was on pace for 62 at the end of the year. And, man, the guy is able to get the ball and get onto the tackles as well. I mean, this is a guy that if he's your last resort, you're pretty confident he's going to stop it. So I think he's going to be able to slide in there, maybe rotate in and out with some of the other guys that you have at safety. But within the year, probably by the end of the year, I think Kyle Duggar can end up being the starting safety for these Detroit Lions. Then we go over to pick 85, and I have them selecting offensive lineman Shane Lemieux out of Oregon. Lemieux is one of my favorite guard prospects, especially because I think he's kind of fallen into that hole of, okay, these guys have been so consistent for the past few years. We're going to start decreasing the value for the newer and fresher toys, you know? And interior offensive lineman, especially guard position, is a very undervalued position in this draft because the tackle class is such a heavy first-round grade. A lot of people are just trying to get those tackles. You know, you need tackles to protect the quarterback. But don't forget about the beefy boys in the middle. Now, when you look at Shane Lemieux, I mean, this guy is an animal. He's helped Herbert get to where he is, and he's a big reason of that. And that offensive line has done wonders for Oregon. But at 6'4", 310, he's got the versatility. I think he's going to be able to fill into a guard hole. I think that's what the Lions have. I think the Lions can upgrade at guard. I don't think that there's anybody there that you're stuck with. I love Ragnow at center. I think the tackle spot is completely filled with Decker and with the newly acquired Hal V from the Eagles. I think you shore up that guard spot. And this is a late third-round pick here. So this isn't a guy that you're going to put in right away, but I think when you go through training camp, you go through preseason, I think he may be able to even earn a starting role right away. If not, I think it's a guy that you ride on the bench for a little bit, you let him develop as much as you can, get him into the correct NFL shape, into the correct NFL stature you need him to be, and I think he'll be able to be a starter by next season. We're going over to pick 109, and I'm going to be selecting wide receiver Devin Duvernay out of Texas. This is by far our best available pick. I think that getting Danny Amendola was solid, but we obviously know that's not a full-time fix. So replacing him with a guy like Devin Duvernay, who's a 4.39 runner at the receiver position, a big play guy at Texas, I think that's going to be very solid, especially in the 4th round. A lot of people have him going, mid to late 2nd maybe, and even a 3rd-round grade. So for him to slip all the way to the 4th round was very good for the Lions. I think that when you have that, not necessarily a huge need at the position, but you could definitely afford to upgrade. Getting a guy like Devin Duvernay at this spot is going to be very huge for the Lions. Like I said, 4.39 speed, that's very solid for him. At 5'11", 210, he'll slide into there to have Marvin Jones, Kenny Golladay, and you can have Amendola and Duvernay switch out when you need to. But he's been a 2-year starter, and this last season was really where he shined. 106 catches for almost 1,400,000 yards. Or 1,400,000 yards. 1,400 yards. That would be insane if he had that much. 1,400 yards and 106 catches, adding 9 touchdowns. That's just insane. 100 catches is just a crazy number to get to. And I think that he's going to have that production in the NFL. Once you get him through there in the right situation, I think it's a great situation for him. To have him with Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay on the outside, Devin Duvernay is going to be going into a great slot position, and I think he's going to fit well. Then we go on over to pick 149 in the 5th round. I have them selecting Logan Stenberg with one of their 5th-round picks, the offensive lineman from Kentucky. I think it's another situation where it's a best available. We already talked about how the guard position needs to be shored up. You get probably a starter caliber player in Lemieux in the 3rd round. I think that getting Stenberg is just to add depth there. In case injuries happen, I think he's able to slide in wherever you need him on that offensive line. Being 6'6", 317 pounds, I think you can slide him out to tackle if someone gets injured. You slide him in interior. I think he's just a guy that you want as a depth piece. And when you're in the 5th round, you're not really gonna find too many starters. You're drafting guys for depth and hoping they can develop into starters, or hoping that you find a diamond in the rough. So getting a guy like Stenberg to be a great depth piece to fill in basically anywhere, I think that that's going to be somebody that you'll love to have on the bench, because if your left tackle gets hurt, bam, Stenberg can hop in. Oh, Ragnow gets hurt at center, bam, put him in there. You're able to rotate him around when you need him, and I think that he's going to be developed into a solid backup possibly even a starter. That's what you hope for every draft pick, but I think that he's going to be a very good depth piece for them and kind of a best available pick at that position. I don't think there's any other position of need that they wanted to reach on at that point. Now, at pick 166, I have them taking defensive tackle Murchison out of NC State. Now, Murchison, standing at only 6'2", 297, it's not the biggest threatening figure as you can see here, but 29 reps on the bench, and he has had a productive season for NC State. He's only been a 2-year starter for his junior year and his senior year. In those 2 years, he's had 80 total tackles. 20 of them were tackles for loss, 12 of them this year, and he's had 11 sacks from the interior, 7 of them this year. He even had an interception last season. I think that what you're getting out of Murchison is a guy who he needs to develop. He's still very raw. But you have Danny Shelton, who you just got in free agency, who I think was a great pick. The D-line is kind of shored up. To get a guy like Murchison to at least learn behind Shelton and maybe develop him into a starter within the next few years, I think it's going to be good. I think he's very disruptive, but that's the thing is that he's a raw prospect. You're going to have to develop him. You're going to have to take that time to make sure that he can become who you want him to be. I think that he's got all the traits to do it. You just got to make sure to fine-tune them and figure out what you can get out of Murchison. But I think this is a very potential diamond-in-the-rough pick for the Lions. I think that Lions fans should be very happy to get a guy like him as a depth piece for the D-tackle position. Then we went over to 182, and I have him selecting running back LaMichael Perine out of Florida. The thing about Perine and the reason I have him going here is that he is such a dual threat back. Kerryon Johnson's had injury concerns. I love Bo Scarborough. And, Ty Johnson was a solid pick last year. But I think with how that running back position was just everybody was getting tossed in and out, in and out, in and out. Getting a guy like Michael Perine, I think he can end up getting one of those running back spots. There's 4 of them usually on a depth chart. I think he's going to be able to slide into one of them at least. And the reason why I say that is that, there's nothing too impressive about what he did at the combine. He ran a 4.62. He did have 22 reps on the bench, which is very good. And the reason I love that is because he's never amassed 1,000 yards in college on the ground, but he's added so much in the receiving game. He had 40 catches this last season. 40. He is such a dynamic player. He's strong. He's got decent speed. I think he's one of those speed. It's one of those guys where maybe like a David Johnson, where they have that speed when they're in the open field, when they're ready to do it. They don't show that speed right away. But 40 catches this year for 5 touchdowns in the air, and then he added 676 yards on the ground with 6 touchdowns as well. The past few years, he's been a running back for 4 years for them. But the past few years, he's been more of a running back, not really adding, but getting 40 catches, going from 13 to 40 catches this last season, showed me a lot to where I think LaMichael Perine, the reason he's getting drafted so late, he never really had that production at Florida for running. And that's really what you want in your running back. But getting a depth piece to where he can be in the backfield a lot more, especially if, unfortunately, Kerryon keeps his injury problems, which you hope not. I love seeing Kerryon on the field. He's one of my favorite running backs to watch. If you get a guy like Michael Perine to be in the depth and be out there and be able to catch passes and do well, I think that's going to be very well to have as maybe a 4th running back on the depth chart. And then we get to the fun part of trying to figure out who a team is going to draft in the 7th round, who most of these players don't even make the rosters. But I have them taking DN Travis Gibson out of Tulsa. The reason why I have them taking him here is because this is another diamond in the rough candidate. Gibson has been very solid at Tulsa, and he's been there for 5 years. He's a redshirt freshman. He's played for 4 years. He's been a starter for 2. And his last season was amazing, in my opinion. 15 tackles for loss, 8 sacks. The year before that, he had 9 tackles for loss and 4 sacks. 49 tackles total this last season. He's done very well. He just is very inconsistent. He doesn't really have the fundamentals that you want. But standing at 6'4", 268, and the thing about that, too, 268 is kind of funny because when he got to Tulsa, he was about 200 pounds. He's added 60 pounds at Tulsa, and he added 25 reps on the bench, which is the only thing he did at the combine. Besides measurement, I think getting a guy like Gibson in the 7th round would be insane for Lions fans because I think it's somebody that, yes, he's raw, but he has all the potential. He's added all the weight, he's added all the muscle. I think if you're able to tune his fundamentals and kind of teach him how to play football the right way, this is a guy that can end up being a very, very solid player, maybe down the line in a couple of years. I think that he could be a good depth piece at that DM position. Maybe by the time Trey Flowers' contract's up, you have a guy like Gibson to fill in there, which is obviously looking far out. But, hey, this is 7th round. You never really know what's going to happen in the 7th round, and trying to mock a 7th round is never going to work. But that's going to be it for the Lions mock draft, as we're nearing almost 15 minutes on this draft. Definitely a fun one. They had a lot more picks than the other 2 drafts I've done, and it's definitely a more fun team because I think they have all the keys to be successful. Just that Matt Stafford injury hurt them so much last season, but I think they're going to bounce back this year. If you did enjoy the video, of course, leave a like. Be sure to subscribe. Comment down below which teams you want me to do next, as I'll be doing all the teams. I'll be doing them in order until I kind of hear otherwise. But so look out for tomorrow. We're doing these daily. This is day 3 of the uploads. Like I said, if you did like the video, leave a like on it. If you didn't, just refresh the page, try it again. And without further ado, I'll catch you guys in the next video.